Welcome to Mindflow Radio.
We are creating conscious community by sharing mindful manifesting skills and transcendental music.
We are all in this
Together.
Reverence for all life. 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 Reverence for all
Mindflow Radio.
Mindflow Radio.
Here we are.
We made
The
it.
eternal present. Look at that.
Yep. He's Monte.
She's Jai Lynn.
And we have Tony with us.
Yeah.
Hello,
Good
hello,
seeing you.
hello.
Good seeing you, brother.
Awesome to be here.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And he's a doctor at our local ER. We're
Yes.
very grateful for his friendship and his service to our community.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big responsibilities.
Yeah. How do you unwind?
How do I unwind?
Yeah, from the pressure of all
that. So I have this opportunity to like live in the forest, which I was always like,
Mhm.
that's never going to really happen. Like, how do you actually live in a forest? And now that I get to stay at a cabin just outside of town, it's just an amazing place to recuperate and, reorganize my soul into something that's more effective and sustainable.
So nature is
Yeah.
your medicine.
Yeah. I was just thinking my son, who's 10, when I was his age, we lived adjacent to this box canyon, actually not very far from Viroqua either, different space, but kind of an analogous area, forest. So I basically grew up in a forest next to a canyon, not far from a stream, just outside of Viroqua. And, again, it's like, I want to live that way, like forever. But then all of a sudden I'm in this urban jungle, Chicago thing. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, right.
Cement.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, right. The cement jungle.
Yeah.
So it's neat to be able to come back home after a number of years being away and now for a number of further years, like live the way I had hoped I would live someday.
Manifested it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say too, being in a big city works for a lot of people. I mean, it's totally possible to still connect with the Tao from the middle of Chicago, I think.
I think it's more challenging.
Yeah.
Perhaps, I don't know. I mean, we each have different
Yeah. Thresholds.
Yeah, well, and I mean, if Ram Dass used to talk about this, how he could totally connect to nature, to the universe, as he's like saying a mantra walking around Times Square. So
I can see that too. I just don't know if I could live that way. I'm grateful that so many people can, but I personally, I think at some point you just gotta drive out to the forest, the park, that's why there are parks in cities, just to have that little bit of.
It's true.
Yeah.
You see people meditating or sitting by a tree and that's what they're doing.
I just had a flashback to the park, quote unquote park, that was sadly next to this inner city trauma center that I used to work at, and that would have been quite the experience in nature to go to that park.
Yeah, right.
Like
not close your eyes.
Otherworldly, right?
Yeah.
You may not escape to the other side of it, kind of situation.
Yeah.
Like this is like an American city here. Like, how is this how it is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's, it's like you're saying, like, you can connect in other venues and ways of living. You should connect to the divine, but living in the forest or, sort of just living in this kind of driftless Viroqua type lifestyle that many of us have established is just easier.
Mm-hmm.
And I need that. Like, I'm way distracted by so many other things. So to have it really easy to, connect to the divine, which is a necessary state to have the most fulfilling life, it's just like, for me, I got to live in the forest. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
And tap into the creativity and the inspiration, insights, revelations.
Well, just a shout out to all those thousands of people who can get there in the city as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing about cities. When I used to live in Milwaukee, I was just really connected with the meditation groups and yoga groups and
healthy social scene would be very, anywhere, but especially in a city, you got to have some healthy social.
Well, anywhere.
Need it. Yeah.
Anywhere. We're so fortunate here to have our peeps and our tribe. And I'm eternally grateful for that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Well, and the people in the city who, you have to do what you have to do to have connections to things beyond just the material, of course, and have your people that you have there. But then, to foster, as we're seeing now, for those that are ready for the journey into the driftless, it's kind of neat that they can actually come and, spend some time with us in our attempts to maintain authenticity and a state of serenity and just connecting to the divine energy. We can all kind of share that with other people, which I think is in my vision of the next, evolution of the area. That's in part what will happen, is that we will heal ourselves by sharing that crazy jubilation of what we've got going on here with people that are ready for that as they journey in, looking for where do I go in the world to find that? Probably does exist other places, but this is just a high concentration of humankind matrix network where that's really going on, and and I don't know. I'm just excited for that, to see that that sort of synergy of like the people seeking that, and then those of us that are in that realm trying to find further celebration and appreciation by sharing that with them.
And that's kind of a part of the healing process, is getting to the place of sharing. And there's the student, and then the teacher, and then the student becomes the teacher.
Right, I know. Which is the whole point of your podcast in many ways.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
In a virtual sense.
For me, teaching is one of the best highs.
Yeah. I know, right? I mean, that...
Yeah,
I was joking with our friend Maria the other day about how, I just get almost this manic state where she's just like, bombarded with this like lecture. And it's like, this is not a conversation. You're just talking. And I'm like, I'm so like starved for like teaching, because there's been less opportunities with COVID to have like students. And, that was my whole previous life, was basically I was more of a teacher than I was even a doctor.
Okay.
Now to not have the opportunity to like explain concepts and like delve into these things I'm passionate about, and rediscovering myself. And so anyway, our friend is she's the recipient of that sort of dialogue for now.
Well, we're glad to be the recipient right now of that.
Yeah.
So thank you. We'll have to
do
this more often.
Right, exactly. It's a win-win.
Yeah. So I'm curious how you develop vision.
Yeah.
And in this time of developing, right? I feel like 2021 is all about developing.
Yeah.
And then moving forward probably in a year or so in just full force. Here we go.
I mean, what an opportunity, to revision your life right now. Like if we wanted to revision your life, like when we started Main Street Station, I had all these ideas of how Viroqua would be, and that was like 2002, 2003. And I was like, it's going to be how it is now. Who knew that it was going to be all those years to really actually get to now? But now is now. And now actually what we were thinking would happen is happening.
Right.
And so for all of us, every human being on the planet right now, there's no more apt, necessary, moment to revision your life. Which, everyone, I'm not certainly the only one saying that. I think a lot of people are naturally drawn to that. So what we've been studying now, for example, through the book Beyond Entrepreneurship by Jim Collins, who's famous entrepreneurial professor guy from Stanford who, now has this really cool business where he basically essentially helps companies revision their companies essentially. So in that book, which I highly recommend, it was just re-released from his original publishing of it years ago with his mentor who died, and he created this book to sort of say, let me just redo this book with my current thinking from what I had years ago. And then really the cool thing, like you were saying, going back to like his mentor and the master that he studied under, who died, who was like one of the greatest, human beings in his whole life. So he republished this book, redid this book, revisioned the book, really, to honor his mentor. And it's like, oh, that is so cool, Cool. And so it's like a business book, but it has so much heart in it, because of how they wrote this thing together and then how he reauthored it, retooled it to honor his friend and, and his master apprentice type situation. So within that book and, other sources, what I really like about it and what I'm doing for myself, and then, humbly, perhaps as I maybe counsel students and med students and residents and other learners in emergency medicine, friends and family and ventures in the business entrepreneurial realm, is like, and again, as Jim Collins says, you really can't have strategy and tactics and just your business plan, your life plan, without understanding what your vision is. So in an evidence-based manner, he's developed this vision creation framework, which is, it's just a roadmap. It's like, it's a template. It's a formula, as we were, saying earlier, in order to create this very user-friendly, authentic vision for your life or for your company, or, you could vision for your family unit, for a relationship,
your culture.
You could revision a culture.
Humanity.
Everything should have a vision. So and vision is like one of these sort of corporate, foo-foo-y things, perhaps. I mean, it can be.
I don't know.
It's just, in a corporation, it's just an organism, really.
Right.
Just like individually we're organisms.
Yeah.
Corporations are organisms. Our culture's an organism.
Yeah.
All humanity is an organism.
Yeah.
And there's a brain that
having a
organizes
vision,
it or something.
I think vision's a beautiful word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really.
I do now. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it went for me from this like inauthentic thing, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, we have to have a vision. Here's our vision on the placard. And you read some of those and there's no heart and soul in it. There's no, it doesn't seem real. Just a bunch of words. And you read the thing and it's blah, 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 and it's like, I have no idea what are they saying? It's like a templated business plan that you get offline or some, from online, and it's just you read blah 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 blah. It's like all this gobbledygook, and it really, there's nothing there at the end of the day. So, So I mean, the vision framework, which is cool, which is like everyone can just sort of take this and read the book, but like the Cliff Notes version of it, the quick and dirty version, is vision is 3 elements, and these are all like everyone knows these elements to some degree already. So there's no, there's nothing like sort of spectacular about these the components of this. It's just like these are what they are. This is how you could think about it according to, this guru.
Okay.
These are, if you put these factors in, through his academic research and his life experience and, literally dealing with thousands of companies and organizations, both for-profit, nonprofit, just a variety of different elements, has shown that formulating your vision using this framework is effective. It's kind of the bottom line. Yeah. So it's really simple. It's basically, I call it, like medically, we have this thing called the CVP, the central venous pressure. So it's CVP and B. So it's CV is core values. So that's really easy. Like sit down, have a glass of mead with yourself or with whoever your collaborators are, if it's an organization or a family or your romantic partner, and just, sketch it out. What do we hold most cherished as far as our beliefs?
It's almost like our philosophy.
Easy. Just your guiding philosophy. I mean, literally your core values. Like they're unassailable, they're unquestionable, they're self-evident. They're how you've lived your life, your whole life to that point, sort of developing, the ethics of how you feel you should be,
or perhaps how you want to, what you want to evolve into,
or what you're striving for.
Yeah, right. Because you might want to change some of your values if they're not serving you.
Yeah,
I would assume.
Yeah,
or the company might want to change.
Yeah, and to some degree, that's exactly right. And ultimately, when you write these down and you say, okay, you circle the ones that maybe you all agree on, or however you want to do it. But at the end of the day, those core values are your core values. Like once you establish them, they may have changed from where they were when you were, the aggressive, young man as I was, with these sort of egocentric ambitions and so on. Absolutely. All due respect to that. But, then you sort of figure things out and you evolve and you grow and you mature and you learn, hopefully. And you are multiply humbled.
By life.
Do multiple podcasts on the many ways that we've all been humbled, sometimes like very painfully. But you come through all that and you establish, okay, so here's my core values, these elements of life. And many of the core values are, they're all the same to us, They don't necessarily have to be unique. They're sort of like, okay, those are good. Those are good core values. So, like mine is like, and like you said, they're not like automatically like achievable. So once you once you establish what your core values are, you have to sometimes fight and struggle to achieve them and maintain them.
To get there. Yeah.
So absolutely. So like, I want to be real and authentic. I want to like appreciate and celebrate. I want to connect to the divine, things like that. Like very easy to be distracted from those because of my own personal, fears, desires, and all that stuff. So establish what your core values are, and crucially, journal them, write them down, and put them on a business card, put them on the wall, do a calligraphy, and paint them somewhere so that they're there.
Yeah, speak them too,
and speak them and share them, and without saying you need my core values, but just like, what are yours? Here's mine. And again, within an organization, make sure every single person involved, if it's your own personal one, and if it's your family, like every single one can say, okay, I can agree with those core values. Yeah. Because they're not just core values; they're really better stated, shared core values. What are those? And the second one, which Jim Collins says that a lot of companies they skip over the middle part here, which is the P, which is, what is your purpose? And I'm like,
that's a hard one. Sometimes.
I know. No, and right. It's not necessarily, it sometimes is the hardest thing. And so this, as he says, what is the core reason you even bleep and exist? Like, I like this Spanish term, like, ¿cuál es tu tema? What is your theme? What's your deal?
Yeah, what's your story?
What's your story? And what is your particular reason, again, whether as a sole individual, complex organism, like you said, moving forth into the world, or what is your organization? What is your entrepreneurial company? What is your reason to be here.
Yeah.
And as he says, which I love this as sort of a guiding framework to create that, is what makes you distinctive and what makes you utterly irreplaceable.
Okay.
Yeah. Like compared to other humans, compared to other similar companies, like,
sure,
how are you different from all these other ones? Because you have to be different to some degree, at least not sort of different for the sake of being different, but how are you distinctive, from all these other entities that are similar, in the similar realm. So, define, what your purpose is.
What your dharma is from a Buddhist perspective.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I think there's layers of purpose. There's the ultimate purpose of being connected to divine.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's the purpose of how do you share this with the world? There's the purpose of how do you raise your children? And
so you're describing your purpose.
Maybe. I think there's like a universal purpose of all humans. And then there's your individual purpose of how do you bring your unique gifts. Right?
Yeah. I think that's exactly right. And in this exercise, what you would do is take all of those elements as you would define them, as they sort of feel, most like earnest and like deep seated, like this is my deal. This is, summarizing all that into a statement of purpose.
I like that word theme too. What's my
what is my theme? What is your theme, man? Yeah.
Yeah, and there's an element too that we need to have like an open mind to allowing our theme to evolve. Like you said, when we were 20 years old, our themes were a bit different than they are now. And what's our theme going to be in the next stage of our life? The next stage of the company.
And so the timeline is interesting. So as he describes it in the book, your purpose is this guiding star in the distance that you're sort of always oriented towards, that you're fixing towards, that you're setting a course towards, and it has it really, once you really buy into this, like what your true purpose is on the world, on the earth, in the universe, in the world, then you orient towards that, and it doesn't necessarily change. It can change if you have to change it, absolutely. But the idea is that you really find a purpose, a reason for existence that doesn't change, because it is so self-evident and so genuine and true within the core essence of the people involved in that organization. So the guiding star in the distance is the P, the purpose. And then the last one, which is in some ways the most fun, is what he calls, so it's CVP and B. So the B stands for BHAG. I don't know if people have heard of that, BHAG. So that's another phrase that Jim coined, which is your big, hairy, audacious goal. So
your big, hairy,
AKA audacious. What, in the corporate world they would call your mission.
Okay.
So
okay.
So your mission is your BHAG, and it is what he's trying to describe there. This is something that is, like, what does audacious mean? It means like you're striving for this crazy goal that maybe a lot of people are like, you can't do that. That's crazy.
It's like over the top.
It's kind of over the top. I mean, in a controlled way. It's not like you're just willy-nilly going crazy. Oh, I'm going to do this just because it's crazy. That's not the point.
No.
But if you have this passion project where it's like, how do I take this passion plunge and jump off this thing where I'm going to live in the freaking forest, that's kind of a BHAG. Like, go from the inner city of Chicago to like back to the Driftless and, live on a hillside, with goats and stuff. I mean, to me, it's not audacious to someone looking in, but to me, that was like, that's impossible. I could never do that. Why would I do that?
Yeah.
So, so it's this big kind of funky, somewhat unique, audacious goal, which is, and more specifically, you create that by saying, okay, here's a rough timeline of what I want to do, and he says this, for example, might be 1 year, it might be 25 years. So your company mission will last a quarter century ish. There's no rules on that. That's your own personal, pathfinding kind of thing. And then you actually get a new BHAG after, so your company is going to do this crazy audacious project for 25 years after that has completed. So you know when your BHAG is done. I think this is hopefully a good example. I've got the cabin in the forest. I'm living, that BHAG is done. What's my next BHAG?
Yeah.
So there's serial adventures that you go on that are audacious and, give you passion, joy, and wonderment, and, serve the first two elements first, of course.
Yeah.
What are your core values and what's your purpose? And then from that, your BHAG will emerge.
Yeah. And an example of a BHAG for like a developer would be, I want to house all the homeless.
Yeah.
That's a big, audacious goal.
Right.
Right. But if you're really driven towards that, and that's your dharma.
Yeah.
In 10 years, bam, you may have housed like 80% of the homeless.
Yeah.
Well,
and we've,
big goal,
this isn't necessarily the BHAG, but a potential BHAG that we've all dreamed about is saying, let's take, open land, vacant land and redevelop it using local materials and earthen structures and make these cool, affordable, super permanent homes as a sort of company development, organization type of thing.
Make it sustainable
and reproducible.
I mean, create our electricity.
Why not?
Sure.
Why not?
Exactly.
So we're not
Little
to the point of like
village.
that's our thing, but that's sort of on the table of like potential things that we're going to collaborate with.
We dream about.
True that.
Come together and talk
and
about.
how crazy that all these other folks that we're involved with that have mastery in that area that if and when we're ready to go, like, wow, we could actually do this, like make these amazing super permanent structures, have it surrounded by these sustainable gardens and ways to so essentially it becomes like how do we act in a way where we have sustainability of shelter, of soul, of sustenance, and of society. Like once you have those four elements, and not everybody does or even has the hope for that as things evolve and change.
Yeah.
This bioregion has that probability to have that occur. It's going to need people to sort of have vision within it. And those with vision will achieve their BHAG. And those without vision might, but it's just going to be something different because
And willpower.
Well, and it all flows exactly. Because it all flows from passion.
Yeah.
It's these multiple serial passion plunges that we take.
Yeah.
And then when we can cooperate on them together in this sort of vision framework, and then finding the right economic targets where you can make it sustainable.
Sure.
That's loosely where we're going. We're broadly where we're going. We're going to go to this passion plunge situation where we're all kind of following our bliss. We're making it sustainable from, financial standpoints. And it's all about like giving and sharing and appreciating and evolving and adapting and creating a new foundation for society so that 20,000 years from now,
they're all over the place.
They're all over the place, and we're our descendants are still here doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, this inevitability of civilizations to collapse and evolve and turn into something else. It's like, is that how it has to be?
No.
Or can we set up stuff now?
Yeah. Can we take a quantum leap out of the old patterns?
Out of the old patterns.
Can evolutionarily, culturally speaking.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Right.
Why not?
And the hypothesis is that one way you can do that is if we have a shared vision of how we do that.
Right.
Which is the exciting thing that we're sort of all entering into now.
Well, it seems to me, that first step of developing your values, if all the individuals have similar values, like I believe, like, as far as our tribe goes, one of the values is that we believe in respecting each other completely, really.
Yeah.
And realizing we're all imperfect beings and we're all humble.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but you just take that step and that's necessary for the next step.
Yeah.
Necessary for the next step.
Yeah.
Another really interesting perspective that about this issue of, the team, the group, like coming together. I mean, individually, we can look at that from a psychological perspective as all the different aspects of our personality, and see if get all those to agree on what your goals are, what your, It's really
Well, and we've seen struggle amongst our group, where, and reflecting on it, I think part of it is that we're close to it, but we didn't have a clearly defined vision yet. But now, maybe, hopefully,
we're honing in on
it, and using this framework is probably going to get us there.
Well, and the idea of respecting each other keeps us all together too.
Yeah.
So we're solid.
Yeah.
And kind of understanding like, oh, okay, we missed this step. Let's back up. Instead of like just forgetting about it or falling apart. And some people are, of course, going to decide against it. And, but to be like, okay, let's just go back and
go back to the vision.
Build a foundation.
Absolutely. And the foundation, I guess, in this way is the vision, which we, again, once we have that established foundational vision, then when we have issues and strife, which are going to happen, like just plan for that. Like plan for every worst case scenario is probably going to happen in one way or another. People are going to have this, they're going to have that. And there's going to be these constant struggles because we're crazy, monkey human people or whatever. But, unlike the monkey, who I don't think has the capability to develop a vision, we can be guided by vision. And so, it's like such an obvious thing when you think about it. And it's not even a big deal. It's not like, it's not really about the vision as much as like what the vision allows you to accomplish. But you can't accomplish anything as clearly and sustainably and as enduringly without vision. Was what we're learning.
I mean, from a manifesting perspective too, it's the vision that allows us to create this thing, and that's what we do as humans. We envision, somebody envisioned a wheel, somebody envisioned a car, somebody envisioned a plane, somebody envisioned, and we're going with that reality, working together and choosing our vision consciously. What do we want to create? In a way too, it's supporting the good, supporting the positive, instead of fighting whatever.
Innovation.
We're just creating our own thing.
Right. Well, I mean, I think it's similar to what you're saying, which is interesting, is that we're such powerful manifestors. Like we are, I think, but everybody has the potential to manifest.
I think everybody's a powerful manifester. I mean, that's my personal belief.
Right. And
it's just like, what are we going to manifest?
What are you going to manifest? So the scary thing, or
I know. Right?
Well, the motivation is because we are strong manifestors, like all of us have that potential. Either you have it or you could easily, acquire the understanding of how to manifest. Create things in the world consciously. But the problem is and this I think happens so often in the world, people manifest and they create this thing, but if it's not guided by vision, or maybe even starts with a vision, but then it detours off the vision, quite often, you gotta start with the vision and you have to reorient back to your vision when you do manifest. Otherwise, you may be manifesting that 3, 4, 5 steps down the line, a generation down, it turns into a net negative. Like, who wants to be part of that? Well, less likely to happen if you start with vision.
Well, and be conscious
if that's a part of the vision.
And be conscious of the energy behind the vision as well. I mean, if my vision is going to be based on anger and fear and yada, yada, yada.
Or profit.
Right.
Greed.
Easy to do.
Out of balance.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever I manifest is probably not going to be really in harmony with with the universe.
Well, and just like how little steps now, magnify into the future. Yeah, I mean, if you don't start with vision, almost, who knows what the probability is, but it's just such a high probability that down the line, it's going to vibrate and kind of break apart into something not good. Well, like what?
The vision allows us compass too. It's like a pointer in the right direction. It keeps us accountable. I mean, internally, if I'm doing something and it's not in line with my vision, if I'm aware of it, aware of it.
Yeah.
Instead of just spinning down some other negative path or some selfish something or another.
It's just so hard to avoid without vision.
It guides us. It helps us guide our lives and guide our minds and
collectively.
I think that's a cool thing about our tribe, talking about the respect, and then just the idea of vision that is purposeful for growing and sustaining the future versus fueling us in the present so we can stuff our pockets or something like that.
Right.
So, you can have a vision that's, I want to stuff my pockets, but it's not going to help in the future. And what it kind of helps, what it reminds me of is in the Bhagavad Gita, they talk about that greed and desire are the things that keep us away from the original purpose of being connected.
Yeah.
So if profit is a part of it, but it's like off to the distance and it's not what drives the navigation of how do we create this thing, then it's more likely that the universe supports it and makes it possible and helps us manifest. And
exactly. I mean, I think vision, vision in some ways is like this divine God energy that's like in all of us, to whatever word you want to apply to that, and if that is our guiding energy, there's the filamentous beauty that is infusing through all of us that is pushing us forward. Then speaking of profits, it's like, if profits are your motivation, like you said, it's just going to probably turn into something you don't want later, even if it starts okay.
Right.
But if vision is your motivation, and if vision is your collective motivation, then the result is collective abundance, is profits. So the result is what you would want to achieve if you were being very selfish about it with, kind of an erroneous, vision kind of thing. So you get what you really need at the end, and abundance isn't just cash profit, which will include that almost invariably if you have a good product that's, economically sound, guided by vision, and you're all collectively working to obtain that BHAG. I mean, how does, it's like, how does that not work?
Well, especially
how does that not work?
With the universe.
That's the thing. And vision is in line with those, beautiful soul energy kind of things. Right. And so abundance isn't just the cash profit, but it's also an abundance of like security because of the interpersonal relationships and the friendships that you find and you strengthen, and the mutual respect that we have for each other. And the act of, ultimately, back to what we first said, it's all about sharing and giving the things that you've sort of, dare say, achieved a little mastery in. The ability to teach it, righteously teach it. What are you doing? You're doing that for yourself in a way, like, I feel so good when I teach. This is crazy. But really you're giving, you're, just as much as you're doing it for yourself, you are indeed giving, and you're gifting this knowledge and wisdom onto somebody who doesn't have it yet, but now does. So it's this whole cycle, flow of an intertwined matrix of like doing good, creating things that endure and like have profit, and like, wow, this is a pretty cool organization. And ultimately are perhaps a way to, like you said, break the cycle of like birth and death of civilizations over and over again. This leader killed that one to get in charge, and now they're in charge, and this leader got killed, and now their son killed, and then the two sons killed each, it's just like over and over again. If you look from like the 20,000 foot view, and and it's like, how do we overcome that? Like seemingly inevitability, and dare say it's through the opportunity to live in a place like where we live, to have a matrix of people that we do, and then to form this primordial vision that will guide us to be town founders for the next version of life to 2.0.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful too, because and what I feel is part of the ultimate vision is remembering the overencompassing purpose, which is being connected to divine or whatever.
Yeah.
And if all of us have that, then of course we respect each other, and everything that we value is in accordance to that.
Yeah.
So if you're if a organization, if a group, if a tribe has that ultimate like guiding principle, then I feel like the universe is like,
because it's all sort of the same thing. It all comes from the same place in a way.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Another way to be abundant too. It's like once you're on that path, I believe just an abundance of vitality. Isn't that just, that's a feeling.
Yeah.
Fulfillment.
Yeah.
I think,
or it comes from fulfillment.
For whatever reason, I just got a picture of a monk and how monks seem to live long and look youthful. And I think that's because they're just always going to that ultimate purpose. Like, okay, this is all I do. Except I do some chores, but otherwise that,
Yeah.
And that's what I saw in my mind when you said
Interesting.
that.
I mean, life in some ways is cut short, and it is affected by our levels of like stress hormones and our overall sort of just state of serenity, internal serenity, knowing it can't always be serene, but because it can't always be serene, you have to strive for internal serenity at all times as much as you can. And so within these organizations, part of the vision building is sort of maximizing the ratio of bliss, passion plunge type of situations with the degree of stress those adventures induce or could induce.
Exactly.
So this bliss to stress ratio where, our bodies are destroyed by stress. I mean, cortisol is like, people know, it's like prednisone, it's being on a dose of prednisone every day, which thank goodness we have prednisone for those that need it. But as we know, over the long term, it's a really harsh substance to have in the body. We have our own internal prednisone essentially. And if that's constantly at a high level, it's just battering the body. And so this type of organization building where we purposefully seek to have a degree of serenity in what we do because we can feel righteous about what we're doing, because we're ultimately trying to do good here.
Yeah, we are.
And we're trying to do it collectively, and we're doing it in an adventurous way. It's like, that... sign me up for that. That sounds pretty cool,
right?
So
the age of Aquarius.
Yeah.
We've all been dreaming about it. And however, maybe not that word, but the golden age, Satya Yuga,
Whatever,
however you want to see it. But we don't have to repeat history.
Yeah. No, are you sure? It seems like we do.
I know
history says
people can choose it if they wish, but I think what we're talking about is ways to vet against repeating history.
Well, it's turning that cycle. If you're just walking in a circle constantly in that pattern, what we're trying to do is turn that circle into a spiral that goes up. And that's, you see.
Yeah.
So we don't have to make the same mistakes. It's just so interesting to me how people have a hard time understanding that we could actually get beyond hating each other.
Or beyond history.
It's bizarre to me, beyond fear. Can we get beyond anger? Sure, why not? We can touch on it. We can have it, maybe not getting beyond it, but we can put it into balance.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be our driving force.
Right.
Fear doesn't. And maybe it had to be our driving force when we were cavemen.
True.
We really did. We
wouldn't be here.
We were probably all in a cave together.
Right.
I'm
sure.
We had
right down by, Bridge 18 off the Kickapoo there,
And we had to defend that cave.
That's a good point. Like we wouldn't be here if we didn't have that.
All of our ancestors were just like badass.
Yeah, had to be.
Boom.
Had to be.
Yeah. And warriors.
Yeah.
Now we just have to apply that in a new way.
Instead
of fighting amongst each other.
Yeah.
With other tribes, we unite with the tribes.
Yeah.
And we fight against the old habits.
Yeah. And if we can take that and turn it into these entrepreneurial things, that gives you power because, you sort of need that sort of baseline to, you can have these ideas, but if you have an organization that also has the prowess of being successful as an organization, whether nonprofit, profit, whatever, but you have sort of the backing of capital and assets and power and people, and then you can take those ideas and, like you said, break outside of just the constant cycle of the circle and turn it into more of a spiral. Yeah. Which, like, people have probably seen that YouTube video where they show the Earth and it's just spinning around. You think you're stationary, and then, we're actually going at thousands of miles an hour because we're on top, this sphere. And then that sphere is like circling around this sun, and that sun is like hurtling through space. Yeah. Yeah. in its own orbit around, and the whole galaxy is turning. Yeah. So really, if you fast forward out and draw these comet tails around where you are, you're like multiple vortices hurtling through space. I think the fastest velocity is like 500,000 miles an hour. Okay. Wow. Which is how fast like the whole universe is moving or something crazy. So right now, that's how fast we're going in like 10 different axes. Yep. What? We're not stationary. Yep.
Plus your cells are spinning.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, inside your cell. That's like the microcosm of it. It's like, man, there's a lot of movement and energy. A lot of movement.
Yeah, a lot of energy.
Energy. Just like, let's hook into that. Yeah. Let's create a better world. That's what we're talking about.
Can we? I don't know. Can we really do it?
Yeah, right.
Well, we can sure try.
Yeah, why not? Might as well give it a shot.
Yeah.
What do we have to lose,
So I'm feeling like this is a good point to just say we're so happy for people listening, that we're so blessed for our tribe to continue growing and be a part of this vision of interconnecting with sustainability and thinking of the future generations, and how do we create a new society that it honors all of these things. And there's more to come, more to say, more to share, and
we're all in this together.
Yeah,
we are in this together. All our energies combine, and we can create amazing things.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, so out there, please subscribe. If you have any questions for us, let us know. We'll definitely do our best to answer, and I'm sure we can get Tony back in here soon and continue with our dreaming, scheming, and creating foundational mastery of future vision.
Yeah, and thanks for being here, Tony. Your insight is always very refreshing.
Thank you.
For sure.
Honored.
Yeah, I always get inspired. Like, yes, let's go. Let's do this.
Woo! Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you. Be well.
Bye-bye.
So this next one is called Chattr Chakkr, and it's really close to my heart, and you'll hear how close it is to my heart in a few moments. But I want to read it to you. This is my textbook from Kundalini Yoga teacher training, and this mantra is for releasing all fears that bind. Chattr Chakkr Varti, Chattr Chakkr Bhugate, Suyambhav Subang Sarabada Saraba Jugate. Dukhalang Pranasi, Dayalang Sarupe, Sadaang Gasange, Abangang Bibute. Thou art pervading in all the four directions, the enjoyer of all four directions. Thou art self-illumined and united with all, destroyer of bad times, embodiment of mercy. Thou art ever within us. Thou art the everlasting giver of undestroyable power. These are the last four lines of the Guru Gobind Singh Jap Sahib, which is the ancient text. This mantra removes fear, anxiety, depression, and phobias, and brings victory. It instills courage and fearlessness into the fiber of the person. It gives Sahib control over one's domain, self-command, and self-grace. Recite this when your position is endangered, when your authoritative personality is weak. So for someone who's trying to heal their solar plexus always, this is a really great one. And it is a personal request from a student of mine. So a shout out to Melissa. Thanks for asking for this mantra. And we will share it now.
Chattr Chakravarti, Chattr Chakkravogate, Suyambhav Subhang Sarabhada Sarabhajugate, Dukalang Pranasi Deyalang Sarupe, Sada Anga Sange, Abhangang Vibhute. Chattr Chakravarti, Chattr Chakkravogate, Suyambhav Subhang Sarabhada Sarabhajugate, Dukalang Pranasi Deyalang Sarupe, Sada Anga Sange, Abhangang Vibhute. Chattr Chakravarti, Chattr Chakkravogate, Suyambhav Subhang Sarabhada Sarabhajugate, Dukalang Pranasi Deyalang Sarupe, Sada Anga Sange, Abhangang Vibhute. Chattr Chakravarti, Chattr Chakkravogate, Suyambhav Subhang Sarabhada Sarabhajugate, Dukalang Pranasi Deyalang Sarupe, Sada Anga Sange, Abhangang Vibhute.